Welcome to Life in the Fast Lane, your weekly NASCAR handicapping show. I'm your host, Steve Merril, and this is Wednesday, July 8th, and we're going to be analyzing the upcoming Kentucky race this Sunday, also recapping this past Sunday's Indianapolis race, a fantastic finish there in overtime. And of course, as always, I'm joined by two expert NASCAR handicappers, Rodkey Atkinson from sportsmemo.com and Andy Lang from wagertalk.com. I'm going to bring them both in. Just a reminder to all the viewers out there, we'll be back at our normal time next Wednesday, July 15th, probably 2 p.m. Eastern live on YouTube. We usually go live on YouTube at 2 p.m. Eastern, but of course you can always watch this show for the entire week on archived, on Wager Talk TV, on YouTube, and on different channels as well. So once again, we're live here 2 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, July 8th, going to handicap Kentucky, and we'll be back next Wednesday, July 15th, 2 p.m. Eastern as well. Rocky, I'm going to bring you in first. You swept the board this past weekend. You won your free play here on the show. Also, perfect 2-0 sweep at sportsmemo.com. Just having a fantastic NASCAR season. Tell us a little bit about how your weekend went.
Like you said, 2-0 sweep with premium picks. I cashed my free head-to-head matchup here on the show. I also had Kevin Harvick to win the race. That was a winner. I also gave two more free winners away on Twitter, absolutely free for all the viewers there. And I was going in this race thinking it was going to be, a boring race, but I tell you what an exciting race it was. Indianapolis has the most narrow pit road on the circuit. I think it's, 24 feet, I think. It showed when they had a competition caution on lap 12. Several cars got together at the end of pit road. A very scary moment as one of Ryan Blaney's pit crew, his tire changer, got pinned in between his car and I think it was Brennan Poole's. A lot of drivers involved in that crash. Just a tough moment there. Glad to report that Blaney's crew member is okay. He did go to the hospital, get checked out. He will be out this race. William Byron won stage one, Harvick won stage two, and of course Harvick won the race. Hamlin was very strong overall, actually winning the race, probably about 7 laps to go maybe. I think lap 154 had a tire go down, hit the wall, put him out the race. Tire wear was a problem in this race, unlike Pocono the week before. So several cars had tire issues. It was a good week for us though.
Yeah, like you said, it's unusual for tires to be an issue. They're not at Pocono. They're usually not at Indianapolis. We haven't had practice sessions this year, guys, but, this was the closest thing we had having the 2 Pocono races right before this one. And it almost seems too easy at times. And we said it last week on the show, it's hard not to use Harvick and Hamlin. But even when it's obvious like that, something can come back and bite you. And Hamlin cuts a tire there with the win in hand, basically with five laps to go, 7 laps to go, actually. But yeah, as far as your notes, make sure you put in there that he was the guy to beat along with Harvick, even though he finished 7 laps off the lead lap. When you look at the final results, like at 22nd, I think, overall. So a very misleading result for Hamlin, but he ran great, and he's been fantastic all season. By the way, 28th overall. So very misleading 28th place finish there because he had that race won. Andy, we'll get to the Ricky Stenhouse Award, by the way, guys, but we're going to definitely be talking about the pit row incident, and also Hamlin will probably be 2 nominees, I would assume. I had actually Blaney as my top matchup. I had Blaney in a matchup there, and that he got taken out there on pit road and never was the same after that, so that was unfortunate. And the guy I was looking to play against coming in, by the way, was Jimmy Johnson. He hadn't been that good here recently, and of course he tests positive for Corona on Friday, and he's out of the race. And it turns out Algier was one of the main guys involved in that incident. He actually is the guy that hit Poole into Blaney's pit member, even though it really wasn't his fault. So crazy finish, crazy start and finish there. Andy, how'd you do at Indianapolis? What were some of your takeaways?
Well, as far as bets go, it was one of those where it was perfectly handicapped, then lost it on the 3rd turn of the last lap in overtime, which is always fun as a professional handicapper. Hamlin over Truex was my big play. I don't know, kind of lucky. Hamlin dominating the race, but gets the win because Truex had the issue earlier in the race. That was a win. I had Boyer as my top 10, and I had him over Kurt Busch, and that was going to be a win until the last caution. And then on the last caution, Matt DiBenedetto wrecked, who I also had bet on, and he lost to Austin Dillon by 1. But on Wager Talk, I had given out him DiBenedetto over Dillon or Bowman, depending on what sports book you had. And most people had Bowman. So if you had DiBenedetto over Bowman, we still turned a 2-1 week. But losing DiBenedetto wrecks, and then Kurt Busch just sneaks by Boyer. I don't think he was ever ahead of Boyer the entire race. So it was just one of those where you walk away and you say, hey, we handicapped it great. We just didn't get the result. That's great. We move on. I got to say that incident with on pit road, it's amazing how good of athletes the pit crew members are. Like, when I was a kid watching NASCAR, those pit crew members couldn't jump. They could barely handle the jack.
Had a cigarette in their mouth as they're doing the gas change.
Yeah, and if you look closely at it, and I did because I was just mesmerized by it. One of the pit crew members of Blaney jumped up onto the roof of the car and avoided it. Man. Yeah, and the guy that got hit, he actually jumped once and avoided it, and then he tried to jump again and almost avoided it. The athleticism really saved those guys. It did. The jack man was toast. He was probably going to get really hurt, and even the guy that did get hit, his athleticism saved him. It's just a reminder of the safety gear and the athletes that you have to be now to be a pit crew guy. So I'm glad he's okay, but all of his hard work, it saved him. It really did. So I was glad to see that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing blows me away, as you guys know, from like the 70s, guys would win 10 or 12 laps ahead of the second place car in some races. And it's just, you look back now and you look at these races now that are decided by tenths of a second. It's just insane. I mean, they had 30, 40-second pit stops back in the day. I mean, and there were guys that were in the shop, they had just come over the wall to change the tires. And it's just, it amazes me that somebody at that point didn't figure out long ago that there was an edge to be gained on pit road. But there was also such a difference in the cars back then that some cars literally were 10 to 12 laps better, and it just didn't matter. But yeah, when I started handicapping just 20 years ago, NASCAR, I'm fairly new to the game in that respect. They weren't wearing helmets yet. And I remember about 3 or 4 years in, maybe 2004-ish or so, they, started making the pit crew members wear helmets, and they'd wear kind of the bike helmets with the little face guard thing. And I was like, this is silly. This is crazy. Now you look at it, you can't imagine them not having helmets on pit road. And and of course, I basically started handicapping right after Earnhardt was killed at Daytona. And you look at the Hans device, the safer walls that have gone in, and you just look at how many injuries would have been prevented back in the day with those now, including Earnhardt's death, most likely. Both of those devices probably would have saved him. So, yeah, NASCAR, as fast and as violent as it can be at times, it's incredible how safe it is as well. And that was a scary, like Rocky said, too, that was a scary moment for me to see what happened on pit road. And it really could not have turned out any better with only one guy kind of getting clipped. I'll tell you what, let's transition, and that's a good time to transition to the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award, because I've got a couple nominees I'm going to throw out. And I mentioned, Hamlin, of course, cutting the tire, I think is kind of obvious and probably will be the winner. But I was really annoyed at the pit road incident thing, not only because I had Blaney in a matchup and he kind of got screwed over there. Not only did it ruin the race, red flag at 16 laps in, but I've never liked these competition cautions. And I understand the point of them, but I always feel like the last thing you need is to have more cautions in a race, because it's the worst part of the race. Even after these stages, I'm not big on them throwing the caution. I wish they would just keep racing, and there'd be more strategy involved if guys want to pit or don't want to pit. But now the competition caution came back to bite them this week, because like you guys said, this is the worst pit road. It's the most narrow pit road on NASCAR. So do we really need 16 laps into a race, 38 of the 40 cars coming down at the same time? And that's NASCAR's fault. That would not have happened otherwise. They just had 2 races at Pocono on top of that last week, which is almost the identical track. As Rocky said earlier, tire wear, Andy, you mentioned it, tire wear is normally not an issue at this track. So it really irritated me that they had the competition caution, then someone almost got seriously hurt because of it. So I'm going to nominate the competition caution as my Ricky Stenhouse, because it was truly an unforced error, because it didn't need to happen. And so, I'll throw it to you, Andy. What are your thoughts, and throw us out some nominees?
Well, stage racing, the competition caution has taken Pocono and Indianapolis and taken a painfully boring race and added excitement to it. I mean, it seems gimmicky, but I mean, Pocono and the Brickyard needed something. This is a race that Paul Menard went went the speed limit and won years ago. He was going 160 miles an hour just because there were no cautions, and he did it on fuel mileage. Fun fact, I know his spotter, Stevie Reeves, who is a spotter for that race. I don't know. I get what you're saying. There was no need to bring everybody down in that narrow pit window, but as the viewer, it works. It adds excitement to it. So I enjoy the competition caution. It also prevents these huge leads. When some of these cars, when they get the right setup, can just blow the field out of the water, and it brings them back together. It's gimmicky, but it does cause some. Well,
how about this idea? Why don't we bring in the top 20, and then on the second lap, pretend like the bottom 20 are a lap down, because that's how they do it normally, during a race, is the lead lap cars pit at a different time. And then don't penalize those guys. Restart them in the order, that they come out in the back, because then they're not a lap down. But I think from a safety issue, we're going to have to look at that in the future, because, this is an unusual pit race. It's the same thing with Martinsville or Bristol. Maybe you got the same issues, at least split the field. My problem with it at lap 16 is that you've got too many guys on the lead lap zone. They all come at once. So, Rocky, what are your thoughts? And maybe throw out a nominee, too, if you got something other than that.
I think NASCAR will look at the competition caution a little closer due to what happened this race. But at the other tracks, pit road's a little bit wider. Probably not going to have this happen a whole lot, so I'm not sure what they'll do about it. I'm thinking you got to go with somebody for the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award with involved in that crash on pit road. You had, I think, Ryan Preece maybe made the initial contact and spun, causing a chain reaction behind him. Got Preece, Justin Allgaier, Brennan Poole, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Martin Truex Jr., Christopher Bell, Corey LaJoie, and Chris Buescher all involved in the wreck there. My nominee probably would go with Martin Truex Jr. just because he was already having trouble from the get-go with the engine. They found out, I think it was only a spark plug. They would probably, open the hood, fix the spark plug, and he'd be back out there. But he got involved in this crash, so that put him out of the race, actually. And I guess I got to go with him as my nominee this week.
Yeah, that caught my eye as well.
I have him written down. That interview was hilarious. Turns out it was just a spark plug.
Plus, Andy, didn't you feel like his mask was unusually high in that interview? Like he literally had it up below like his eyeballs, and I thought that kind of for some reason that caught my attention. He just, it
was a bad week for Martin Truex.
It was, and he's one of my top guys this week, and I'm hoping that transitions into that do factor we talk about, because it was a terrible week for him on a track in which I think he'd only had one top 5 in 15 starts, even though he's had speed at times. I'm still going to go with Hamlin personally, because, the definition of an although, what do you think, Andy? It was an unforced error cost him the win, but then again, I guess it was a tire going down, so I'm not sure that was his fault. What were your thoughts on that on Hamlin?
I can't nominate him as an unforced error award because he didn't do anything. And there just wasn't the comedic value. I think we need to go with comedy on this. I do have one other nominee, very subtle nominee. Actually, 2 of them. I don't know if you guys noticed this. 3 laps before the end of stage 1. This is lap 38 of 160. Chase Elliott pushes Austin Dillon past Kevin Harvick, and the announcer goes, "That could be a race-winning move."
Oh goodness!
And there was silence. They were like, maybe a stage-winning move, and then Kevin Harvick wins the race. So it was not a race-winning move. It's just announcing. I'm shocked you guys didn't bring this up, but we said some of my NASCAR buddies have said sponsoring a NASCAR is a dangerous proposition for Trump, because if that car gets in a wreck, the pictures just fly on social media, and it happened the very first race that he sponsored. He got involved in a pit road penalty.
Which car was that? I don't even remember.
Corey LaJoie.
32.
Yeah,
I did not. I never saw that.
Did the announcers even mention that?
No,
I didn't know. So I don't think they did, I would have heard it.
Yeah, they were so worried about Blaney's pit crew member, and obviously for good reason. And it was so hard to see who was involved and who. Right. Who started it, that they didn't even get to who was involved until, 10 minutes later. And no, it's probably a good move. They didn't go into it, but yes, I've never seen a president sponsor a NASCAR that get involved with a wreck. Yes. So.
Well, which car is Bump 2020 going to be on this week for your presidential run?
well, if I could, I bet you guys didn't know this, but there are actually a lot of political sponsors on cars. Did you guys know that?
No, I did not. And I missed the Trump one, which I can't get over.
Yeah. So I actually have here some notes about some political cars here. So if you guys can follow along here. I bet you guys didn't know Al Gore had a NASCAR years ago. He barely lost a race in Florida. It was a photo finish. He almost won the race in Florida. Mitch McConnell has a NASCAR race. He's not very popular because he keeps blocking everyone. Justin Amash has a car. He had it in Sunday's race. He switched teams halfway through it. Hillary Clinton had a NASCAR in 2016, but she refused to race in Wisconsin. Not going to race in Wisconsin. The Donald Trump car had trouble years ago at Talladega because it was avoiding the drafting. And finally, I bet you guys didn't know this. Monica Lewinsky had a car in Sunday's race. Unfortunately, she blew a piston.
Ding, ding. I forgot my cymbals today and my snare drum. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's hard-hitting facts and hard-hitting journalism that keeps people coming back.
And I'll tell you what I love about the show is you'll hear it here first because there's no NASCAR sanctioned show that'll dare talk politics or anything. They are running so scared right now with the current political climate in this country that's probably why they didn't mention. I honestly did not know the 32 had a sponsor on it, and I watched the race from start to finish. And the announcers, had they said it, I would have heard it. So
it was well. They really came in and saved his team. They're sponsoring 9 races, wow. And his team needed the money, so they went for it. So you'll get plenty of chances. Did we decide who's the winner?
Because by the way, I didn't realize that's part of the Penske crew because they gave the tire changer over to the 12 team when he was out, and I did not know that 32 had any affiliation with Penske. And the only reason I bring that up is because I think Logano, Keselowski, and Blaney have been the most consistent team on the circuit this year overall. So. I don't know if that'll translate at some point to the 32 having some spark, but we'll see. Yeah. What do you guys? I'll let you guys decide because Hamlin was kind of the one I was thinking, but I guess you're right. It really wasn't an unforced error. If it was a tire going down, I never really got confirmation if that's what it was. But if that wasn't his doing,
I vote for Truex's awful race.
That's fine with me, and I know Rocky's on board with that. So.
All right,
Truex, and I like giving it to guys like Truex and Elliott because they're not going to win many of them. They're good drivers, so I think it's one of the few chances we have to give it to Truex. So, and yeah, that was he basically came out and said, had we known it was only a spark plug, we wouldn't have come down then, and they wouldn't have been caught up in that. They would have fixed it, and he could have been a top 10 car. So that's definitely was a costly error, no question about it. All right, so we'll give Martin Truex Jr., the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. unforced error of the war. The junior wins the junior award.
Yep.
I like how Rocky snuck in that Stenhouse was involved there just to give him another nominee.
Absolutely.
We're padding his nominee stats. By the way, he's quietly been running okay the last few weeks. And I know you guys hate to hear that, but
we're always rooting for him. Always rooting for him.
We'll see if it continues. By the way, viewers out there, Rocky's picks are at sportsmemo.com. He swept the board last week. Andy's picks, wagertalk.com. Big card from Kentucky, guys, so let's get into it here. Rocky, I'll start with you. This is a cookie cutter. It's a 1.5 mile super speedway. Really the only one that's like this since the shutdown is Homestead, but Charlotte and Darlington are pretty close. The one that's the closest to this all season was back in February, Las Vegas. Identical 1.5 mile terrible tracks. The difference, of course, viewers, these guys know it, but viewers remember we had practice sessions back in February for Vegas. So guys that ran there should do the similar results here, but it's a little different. A guy like Kyle Busch has been the dominant driver here at Kentucky the last 3 years. And I was going to say that coming in, it's like Groundhog Day. It's once again a track that Kyle Busch has been great at, yet we have to worry, is it the same Kyle Busch? And he doesn't have practice times once again. So, Rocky, what are your thoughts? Who's someone you're looking at Kentucky this week?
You just mentioned him. I'm taking Kyle Busch to win the race this week.
Wow.
This is one of his dominant or tracks he dominates. He has 2 wins, 7 top 5s, 8 top 10 finishes in 9 races here in Kentucky. His average finish is 4.7 at this track, which is the best among all drivers. Past 3 years, he's finished second, fourth, and fifth with an average finish of 7.4. Kyle Busch hasn't won a race this year. Kyle Busch don't like that. He does not like to finish second. We've kind of stayed away from him for the most part, most of these races, because everybody feels practice is his problem. He needs practice. He needs practice. But this is a track he dominates. I think he likes this track. I think he's going to win this weekend. So I'm going with Kyle Busch to win it.
So he dominates this track, Rocky, just like he dominates Pocono. He dominates Bristol.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with it? No,
Right.
I mean, I wanted to play against Kyle Busch this week because I'd said going into last week, if he doesn't, not necessarily win Indianapolis, but if he's not like the 1 or 2 best cars there, I was done with him until he won a race. And he wasn't one of the 2. I mean, Harvick and Hamlin were the 2 best again. And you know, he was very good at Indianapolis going in, but then he had the 2 Pocono races before, which were almost like practice sessions, and he still wasn't the best car last week. But I can't fade him here because, like you said, statistically, he's the best driver on this track this week. So I'm probably not going to use him because I'm not sold on him, but I'm not going to fade him either. So I'm in limbo with Kyle Busch. Andy, what are your thoughts on Kyle Busch? Who's someone else you're looking at?
I will get to Kyle Busch, and I'll give out a free pick at the end of the show. I'll get to Kyle Busch. Fascinating stat here. Last 4 Kentucky races. I'm going to read you the top 4 average finishing drivers. Ready? Eric Jones, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, Denny Hamlin.
Oh,
all Gibbs cars.
Yep.
So what you're up against is, what do you believe? Momentum or track history? It's the age-old thing. We run into it with NASCAR. I run into it with golf all the time. Do you trust the golfer that's playing better right now, or the golfer that has played better at a certain course? I mean, Gibbs knows these setups, but I got to say, they lost Denny's tire. Truex had his multiple messes. Eric Jones had a mess. And they said after the race that Kyle Busch wasn't even trying to push forward because he was terrified of what was going to happen to his car, and he felt some uneasiness in his car. And this is not just one race that this has happened at. Hamlin has been great, but some of those other Gibbs cars have really struggled. And we saw it earlier. I can't remember what race it was. Do you remember the race when we talked about how great Martin Truex was, except he was lapping his own teammates who couldn't keep up? This Gibbs team, for whatever reason, seems like they can get a setup great on one car, but not all 4. Like, it doesn't make any sense why Denny Hamlin is this much better than his teammates. So Gibbs has shown that they have a lot of success at this track. I tend to look more at how you're running now, and the Gibbs cars make me very, very nervous.
Yeah, Eric Jones was kind of my sleeper guy I was going to mention, and I've seen him early at one sports book. I think DraftKings has him in a head-to-head against Almirola. I saw that loud when I was looking, and boy, you talk about that quandary right there, Andy. You've got the ultimate example of momentum versus track history. Eric Jones has been much better than Almirola on this track, but Almirola now has 5 straight top 5 finishes the last 5 races. He's quietly the hottest driver on the circuit. On a team, by the way, that's hot as well. Cole Custer had a great run. Kevin Harvick won. So, yeah, that Jones-Almirola head-to-head matchup is really tricky because I'm looking to play Jones this week just because I feel like we get a better price with him versus the other Gibbs drivers. Going back to Homestead, by the way, what you said there, you know, the Gibbs cars had been great on that type of track as well. It's a 1.5-mile cookie cutter. We had that a few weeks ago. It's the only one that we've had on a true 1.5-mile cookie cutter other than Charlotte since the shutdown. Denny Hamlin crushed everybody there. The highest driver rating won the race, but Kyle Busch was 6th. Truex was 12th. Eric Jones was 21st, did not finish top 10 in either stage. Truex was 7th in only one stage. Kyle Busch was 9th in only one stage. So, I mean, that goes to what you're saying there, and that concerns me big time because I almost feel like Miami just June 14th, just 3 weeks ago, might be a little more telling than, you know, last year's Kentucky race. So, yeah, it's tough. You know, Rocky, I don't disagree with Kyle Busch, but as you know, I'm on the record. He makes me very nervous. Who's someone else you're looking at this week?
Looking at Brad Keselowski because Keselowski has 3 wins, 4 top 5 finishes, 6 top 10 finishes, and 9 races here in Kentucky. His average finish is 12.3 at this track. Keselowski is the hottest driver over the past 10 races. He has 2 wins and 8 top 10 finishes. He has an average finish of 7.4. This team's running real good. I feel like they'll be near the front here this weekend.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with the Penske driver. You know, I'm on Team Penske now. Logano, Keselowski, and Blaney have all been fast all season. Blaney's kind of the Eric Jones of that team. He's the youngest guy. He's the most inconsistent guy. But if you look at some of the green flag averages this year, he's actually been faster than both Logano and Keselowski on many tracks. But Keselowski's like Harvick. He's got that consistency factor that we always talk about. He's almost an automatic top 10 play each and every week like Kevin Harvick. So, yeah, not a bad pick at all, and I think that whole team will be fast. Andy, what are you looking at?
You know, he had great track history at Indy, and he was great again. The young pup, Matt Kenseth, 48 years old, he was really good. And, look, he's gotten better since he's been back. Average finish at the 2 Pocono races in Indy, 8.3. So I went back and looked at Kentucky. He did not race here in 2019. He did in 18, 17, and 16. Average run position, top 10. So, wow. Yeah, he showed he was good. And that was not a fluke finish from him at Indy. He was consistently up there. So if you believe that Matt Kenseth is getting better and you believe that he has tracks that he does good at, I think you have to look at Matt Kenseth. And he's one of those guys that I hope in DraftKings I get him starting pretty low in the field. He'd be a steal at around that 7 to 7,500 mark if we get that. So,
yeah, I mean, Kenseth was a guy that I mentioned last week. He kind of threw me for a loop because he ran so well in Darlington that first race back in the 42 car, which has always been strong for several seasons now, Kyle Larson's car. And I didn't necessarily play Kenseth, but I didn't play against him for like the next 5 or 6 races, and he just kept not performing. I could have won a lot of head-to-head matchups. And then all of a sudden at Pocono last week, he looked good in both races, and that, of course, transfers well to Indianapolis. So the question for me is, can he do it now on a cookie-cutter 1.5 mile? But no question, he looks like he's starting to round into form. And Kyle Larson's got great track histories on all these tracks. So the team knows how to win there. One thing they said, by the way, guys, last week, I heard this on the broadcast. They said that there was a real learning curve because Kenseth really likes his setups completely different than Kyle Larson. So I thought that was interesting, and that would explain why they don't do well for 5 or 6 races. And if that's true, and if they figured it out now, he could be a real play-on guy for several weeks now. My only concern is that he is good at Pocono and Indianapolis, and those are different types of tracks. So kind of like Kyle Busch, this is a real telltale race for me with Matt Kenseth. If he shows well here, play on him for many weeks, I think. Rocky, who's someone else you're looking at?
Well, I want to just mention Kenseth. I think he's a top 10 car this weekend for sure. I don't have anything in my notes about him here in front of me, but definitely like the way y'all going with that. Third guy, Denny Hamlin. Hamlin, he has no wins here, but he has 4 top 5, 4 top 10 in 9 races here in Kentucky. Average finish 14.9 at this track. Over the past 3 years, he's actually done a little bit better. His average finish is 8.3 at this track. We know how Hamlin's been running. He and Harvick's probably been the best 2 out of the crowd. Don't be surprised if Hamlin's up front again this weekend.
Yeah, this is just how good Hamlin's been since his crew chief has come back. You know, it's an angle you mentioned a lot, Andy, about how, he ran well without his head coach, basically, and he's been even better now. Overall this season, if you look at average green flag speed for all laps on all the races except Daytona and Talladega, Hamlin is only the 9th fastest car this year. But the last 4 weeks, second, and third fastest the last 4 races. So he's obviously running better than his overall season numbers, and his overall season numbers are still great on the surface. He has a ton of wins. By the way, Chase Elliott has been the fastest guy on average of all tracks this year. Harvick second, Keselowski third, who Rocky's already mentioned, and Blaney fourth, a guy that I've mentioned. Kyle Busch is fifth. So, there again, Rocky, that's why I'm not against Kyle Busch. And if there was anybody else, I'd be on him every week. The problem is that you're still getting him at like 5-1 every week. He's priced as Kyle Busch that's won 5 races, as opposed to a guy that's under the radar like Matt Kenseth maybe that hasn't won yet. So the value thing is what gets me with Busch. But yeah, he could go out there and win easily. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Andy, who's someone else you're looking at? Maybe a long shot. Anybody else you want to touch on?
I lost on him last week. Doesn't mean he didn't run good. Clint Boyer. I'll be happy to support him. He didn't do anything wrong last week. In fact, quite the opposite. He ran great. He just got caught up in an accident, had to slow up. I don't think he got in the wreck, but he had to take it to the outside, and a bunch of cars passed him on the inside. If it weren't for that last caution, we easily cashed Boyer over Kurt Busch and the Boyer top 10. So I was watching him closely, and it's really strange. He gets absolutely no airtime now. He's been running good, and he's really funny, and he came out looking like a rock star out of that E-Series, but they don't go to him in the car, in the camera. I guess it's just, he's not winning stages. But the less airtime that he gets on the telecast, it probably helps our value because he's a little bit out of sight, out of mind. But I'm going to keep going on Boyer. He's eliminated some of these dumb mistakes. His team seems to be on it. I don't see any problems with pit stops. So I'll be looking at Boyer kind of in that top 10 range. So another good DraftKings play.
Yeah, last week he was with plus 105 for top 10, and we were saying there was an overlay there. He definitely isn't getting the respect for some reason by not only the announcers but the betting market. He's been consistent on a lot of these tracks, and he's a guy that doesn't necessarily win races, but he's a veteran driver that usually finds a way to finish on the lead lap. Rocky, you got a long shot, somebody you're looking at, maybe it has a nice little payoff?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the payoff is on this, but I agree with you, Steve, with Eric Jones as one to watch. Do you know what odds are?
Right now at DraftKings, he's at 25-1 to win, top 3 6-1, and he's at minus 106 for top 10. So basically even money for a top 10, which I do like that a lot. Although I'll be honest, Rocky, I think at Eric Jones, take him to win at 25-1 because he either wins or he finishes 20th. He's
boomer bust. Take your 25-1.
Yeah, I wouldn't take a top 10 with him. A guy like Boyer, a veteran, it's a better play. Yeah, I like that though, Rocky. I mean, what are your thoughts on Eric Jones?
Well, he has no wins here. 1 top 5, 3 top 10 finishes in his 3 races here in Kentucky. His average finish is 5.3, which is second best among all drivers. He has finished 3rd, 6th, and 7th at this track in his career. So he has the numbers. He don't have a win here, but he has some solid numbers to run in that top 10 for sure. I'm like you, 25-1. You might sprinkle a little bit on it. Top 10 may be a safer bet for sure on Eric Jones.
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way, Rocky. He's on the same team as Kyle Busch. Neither has a win this year. Kyle Busch is now second to Harvick at 6-1 to win this race. Harvick's 4-1. Kyle Busch and Hamlin around 6.5 to 1. Truex 6.5 to 1. And now Eric Jones 25-1. So 3 of the top 4 favorites right now are his teammates, and they're all at 6.5 to 1 or less. And we're getting Jones at 25-1. There's no question there's value there. Now, the other guys maybe are short. Maybe they should be a little higher because they've been inconsistent. But that team is fast, and I've liked Jones a lot this year. I had a bad luck loss with him at Pocono last Saturday, and then, of course, Sunday he finishes 3rd, and the price is like 200 cents higher against Johnson in that head-to-head because they repriced it. But, yeah, he's a sleeper. Blaney was a guy that was a sleeper for me earlier this year, but obviously he's been winning now, and people are seeing that speed. But I like Eric Jones every week going forward. I think it's some week he's going to be a top 3, maybe even win a race. You guys we'll get to the head-to-head matchups here. First, I want to remind the viewers that Rocky's best bets, sportsmemo.com. Rocky swept the board last week, not only here on the show, not only on Twitter, but also more importantly on his top plays, including a 5%. What are you, Rocky, now 5-1, I think, at Sports Memo? Yeah, on your 5% best bets since you've joined about a month ago. So just incredible. I know every week the viewers are like, I missed out. It's too late to get on board. And then every week you guys keep on winning. And we've got several months remaining still of NASCAR. Andy does PGA golf as well. Baseball, basketball about to start up. Rocky hits that, of course. We're about 2 weeks away from baseball, 3 weeks away from basketball. So Rocky's best bets at sportsmemo.com. Andy's NASCAR and golf best bets at wagertalk.com. And, of course, we'll be back on this channel next week, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday next week, to talk a little about the All-Star race, but more importantly about the following race, which I believe is Texas, and we'll recap Kentucky as well. Andy, do you have any other long shots you like? Boyer's kind of a long shot. I'm seeing him right now at about 40-1, and he's plus 130 top 10. Any other long shots? If not, get to that head-to-head for us.
No. There just are no long shots in NASCAR. Just not at this point. You only see him at Talladega and Daytona, and now even then it seems like it's all chalk. You need something crazy with the weather, which obviously can always happen, but these big name teams they've wised up and they know how to work these pit stops now around weather. And I just don't see any long shots winning any of these. I mean, is DiBenedetto a long shot? Because he's the only guy I see that has a car that can race with some of these guys.
Yeah, it's 66 to 1. I think he
okay, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm
glad you mentioned him, actually, because he's showing in top 10 green flag speeds all season.
Phenomenal speed. Shocking.
And he's a guy, Andy, it's not even debatable if you use momentum versus past history because it's a different car, as you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like him. I'm glad you brought him up. He's someone I meant to throw. And Christopher Bell right ahead of him. In fact, you got an Andy Lang sandwich right here. You got well, actually, and Rocky included on the top here. We'll put he's the olive on top. We got Kenseth at 33 to 1, Boyer 40 to 1, Christopher Bell 50 to 1. That's why I mentioned you, Andy. The Benedetto at 66 to 1, and then you can throw me in. I got Reddick at 66 to 1 and Custer at 100 to 1. Those are 6 in a row there at DraftKings on the long shots. I think all 6 of those guys have a chance of being a top 5 car on this track. But you're right. Otherwise, maybe not Custer, but Custer
not
ran.
Custer.
Yeah, exactly.
Not Custer.
But those guys, Kenseth, and actually right above him is William Byron at 33 to 1. You know, Byron is just like Eric Jones. He's been fast at times, but very inconsistent. So I think those guys have a chance. But you're right. Otherwise, it would have to be. And it's not going to be a fuel mileage race, by the way. Like Indianapolis could have definitely been a fuel mileage race. And that's another reason guys like Menard and, random guys can win there. But, yeah, anyway, a good point. And so the head-to-head matchups, though, are really the way the most pros like you guys play these races. And that, of course, is, you go to sportsmemo.com for Rocky, wagertalk.com for Andy. You're going to get the head-to-head matchups. Just want to let the viewers know that. And this is where these guys make their money. Andy, give us a free one, and then, of course, your best bets will be at wagertalk.com as well.
Okay. Well, I have added a play since doing this show.
Nice.
I'm gonna upload it. Free pick. I'll put this up on Wager Talk as a free pick. But this is the Rocky special. I'm gonna take Kevin Harvick over Kyle Busch. Rocky and I, we both succeed, and yet we have different styles of handicapping. And this is a bet that reflects my style of handicapping. I put more credence into current form than I do track history. If we look at past performance at Kentucky, Kyle Busch has dominated, no doubt about that. The last 3 years, his average finish is 3.7, while Harvick's is 12th. I'm throwing that out the window, and I'm riding the hot hand of Kevin Harvick. His last 3 races in 2020, he's won 2 of them and finished second in the other. And Kyle has struggled. I think he's missing something. He doesn't have that sweet sauce. It's almost like the Super Bowl hangover, maybe. Gibbs, real troubles with their cars the last couple weeks. They seem to have lost their special stuff except for Hamlin. I think also when these guys don't run great for an extended period of time, they get some doubt in their mind and they kind of start expecting the worst. You look at Harvick and Hamlin and they're just expecting to go out and lead a bunch of laps and win the race. Kyle Busch is at the end of that race. He was just trying to hold his car together. And that's the difference between finishing second and finishing 7th. I mentioned the history of Kentucky earlier. Harvick is actually not a scrub. I dug deep into the numbers. He just hasn't had the finishes. Average run position while on the lead lap, Kyle Busch is first, averaging a 4.6 average run position the last 4 years. Third is Harvick, averaging a 5.6 run position. So he's not terrible here. He just hasn't had the finishes. Everything momentum-wise seems to be swimming in the way of Kevin Harvick. He, some reason he got the win, even though Hamlin was the better car. So if you're not on Harvick or Hamlin, I think it's a mistake. So I will take Harvick with the better momentum over Kyle Busch.
Yeah, and it's amazing, isn't it, that we've gone through this entire broadcast and we hadn't talked about Kevin Harvick yet. None of the 3 of us mentioned him as one of our 2 or 3 drivers to watch. Rocky's got his hat on. He still didn't mention him.
I was saving him for the end.
That's fantastic. I love it. But, yeah, Harvick is tricky. Also, keep in mind, he's never won on this track. It concerns me that he won last week on the Sunday race, but he should be plenty motivated. And we saw him win at Pocono last Saturday. He's won 2 of the last 3 races now. He won a track he had never won at Pocono. He wins a prestigious race at Indianapolis. Normally, that would make you very nervous about this week, a letdown. But, yeah, he's never won here in 9 starts. It's one of the only 2 or 3 tracks remaining when that's true. So he'll be focused. and he's got the 4th best driver rating here the last 3 races, right behind the 2 Busch brothers and Truex. So it's not like he doesn't run well here. He just hasn't gotten the win. And we saw that at Atlanta. We saw that at Pocono, where he's run well a lot of years, and he's won at both of those this year. Yeah, I think from a consistency factor, he's obviously the safer in a head-to-head. But Rocky, I know you love Harvick, and it's ironic this week that he's going against him, and he's going with them with the guy you picked to win the race in Kyle Busch. So, Rocky, what are you looking at for a head-to-head matchup this week in Kentucky?
Well, I just want to mention, I can't believe that y'all didn't catch that I didn't take Harvick as one of my top 3 drivers.
Oh, we did.
I something about it earlier.
Well, I was waiting. I thought he'd be 3rd. I thought he'd be 2nd, and then I thought he'd be 3rd.
He's actually 4th.
You got him 4th. That's what I figured. There you go.
But I won't be playing against Harvick this week. I probably wouldn't touch the Kyle Busch Harvick matchup as far as Andy. Andy's smart though. Andy handicaps NASCAR very, very well. So for all the listeners, you definitely want to look at Andy there. My free head-to-head, I'm going to go with Brad Keselowski over Joey Logano. Keselowski has 3 wins, 4 top 5s, 6 top 10 finishes, and 9 races here in Kentucky. His average finish is 12.3 at this track. Like I said, he's the hottest driver the past 10 races, 2 wins, 8 top 10 finishes, and an average finish of 7.4 during that time. Logano has no wins here, 2 top 5s, 6 top 10s, and 9 races here in Kentucky. Average finish is 12.8. Not bad, not quite as good as Keselowski, but Keselowski's a little bit better. I just feel like Keselowski's more consistent right now. And I got Logano probably finishing at the end of the top 10, somewhere in that range. So just a small play on Keselowski over Logano.
Yeah, and these guys are almost every week matched up against each other at all the major sports books. So it's a great free pick because almost anybody can find it. It's a very usual, universal matchup, and it's almost always minus $1.15 each way, a pick'em price. By the way, Keselowski has the 3rd fastest green lap average speeds this season. Logano is only 7th, and 6 of the last 8 races, Keselowski's been faster than Logano in that particular race. And that surprised me when I saw that because Logano's been really good this year at times, but he's also more inconsistent, whereas Keselowski and Harvick are the 2 most consistent drivers. We say it every week, almost guaranteed top 10s every week. They don't make mistakes. So not only do you have the more consistent driver there, Rocky, but you actually got the guy that's technically been faster this season and over the last couple months. So when you break it down that way, it makes a lot of sense. And it's one that I usually avoid because I like both of them, but I think that's worth a look as well. So we got Rocky's free pick, Keselowski over Logano. That's around a pick'em. And then we've got Andy's free pick, Harvick over Kyle Busch. That's also around that pick'em, maybe $1.20 price, depending where you shop. Once again, Andy Lang's best bets for NASCAR, wagertalk.com. Rocky's best bets for NASCAR at sportsmemo.com. And Andy's got PGA and NASCAR at wagertalk.com. Rocky's got NASCAR. We'll also have baseball in a couple weeks at sportsmemo.com. Guys, we're going to wrap it up. It's a great show, as always. Great information. We're going to be back.
Can I say something here real quick?
Throw it in there.
I'm really mad at myself for not taking the Brad Keselowski over Logano play as my free play. I'm so jealous. Joey Logano sucks. That guy is such a disappointment since they came back. I actually had this stat written down and I forgot. Do you know since the break, since returning, you take out Talladega, the number 1 driver average finish is Brad Keselowski at 6th. Logano's in 16th. Logano sucks. On that guy a couple times, he's completely let me down. So follow that one. Follow that free pick.
Yeah, I mean, we get that, like I said, every week at a pick'em price, and it's available every week. It's never really adjusted. It's always minus $1.15. It never moves. Yeah, let's hope we don't get too many followers moving. Let's see where that line closes on Sunday. Rocky, you might be moving the markets once again. And by the way, folks, Rocky has moved NASCAR lines over his career, and I'm not joking when I say that. So, and Andy has a little bit of movement in golf and NASCAR as well. Wink, wink. So, you guys might want to get these purchases in early, and that's something that, all seriousness, if you're going to make the plays, get them early. These guys post them ahead of time. Andy just said he has them up now. He's going to add another one, and that's at wagertalk.com. There's no sense waiting. 99 out of 10 times, these lines are not going to be as good at post time as they are several days ahead of time. So wagertalk.com for Andy's picks right now. Rockies will be up soon this week at sportsmemo.com. That's a great way to head out, guys. So let's regroup next Wednesday, July 8th. We're going to have a little all-star talk, and then more importantly, we'll have a cup race that following Sunday. So next Wednesday, July 15th, 2 p.m. Eastern, live, Wager Talk TV. Thanks, guys. Great show as always. Take care, and good luck this weekend.
Good luck.